Animations in games are one of the most important things when it comes to player feel and the look of the game. It makes everything feel alive and just a tad more realistic. In terms of game feel, the player gets some satisfying and clear feedback when doing things. In this video I will give you 10 tips to improve your game's animations. Before we start with tip number 1, I want to introduce myself really quick. My name is Daniel and I'm making a roguelike game with classic shoot 'em up aspects called a Saw. Most animators know the principle of anticipation, in that the character first prepares for the action and after that it does the action. In games we need to do that differently, however. Because having anticipation before jump, for example, just wouldn't feel responsible. When we press the jump button, we want the character to jump without any preparation. This also makes the game more fun and less hard because you can dodge enemies or similar without planning because of a delay. So in your game animation, you can put 1 frame of anticipation max or leave it out completely. Add squash and stretch to your animations. It doesn't have to be much. It makes the animation look more juicy and less robotic. If you animate a machine or robot, that's obviously what you want. But in case of a living creature, like an animal or human, it should feel pretty organic. You can achieve the effect of squashing by decreasing the scale of the y-axis and increasing the scale of the x-axis. The effect of stretching is achieved by increasing the scale of the y-axis and decreasing the scale of the x-axis. If you're working with 3D animation and you want to do squash and stretch, you just do the same with the z-axis as you do with the x-axis. Be careful, however, with how much squash and stretch you add to animation, because the intensity of it decides how cartoony or realistic your animation looks. When you want to achieve a realistic animation, you don't use much. In case you want your animation to be cartoony, you use a lot more so it looks nice and bouncy. One last but very important rule with squash and stretch is that the total volume of the object or character is not allowed to change. So when scaling up on the x-axis by 1 unit, you need to scale down on the y-axis by 1 unit as well. If you are able to work with curves, always look at them. Changing the speed with a curve makes the animation look so much more professional. The animation should fit the art style. For example, a cartoony animation wouldn't fit this character, and a realistic one wouldn't fit this character really well. It's actually the inverse. If you're making hand-drawn art like you see in Tadpole Tales, for example, frame-by-frame animation would fit better than bone-based animation. So I would recommend researching your art style, or if there's a similar one, and then look up how other people animate this or the similar style. In case you just don't like how you need to draw a character multiple times for hand-drawn frame-by-frame animation look, I got a little trick for you how you can make an animation look like it's drawn frame by frame, even if it's bone-based. The answer to that is shaders. Before you apply a shader, however, you first create the animation. As an example here, I made an idle animation. After you are happy with the animation, you take a hand-drawn look shader. I'm not a shader programmer or anything, but you can get these shaders easily from the internet. For example, I used the hand-drawn shader from the all-in-one shader package. Don't be afraid to use references. It's nothing illegal or wrong. I actually always look up for references when I animate a walk cycle for an animal or human. Walk and run cycles are actually a really tricky thing, and I just recommend so much just looking at a reference before animating. It will improve the animation by so much. These references can be an animation sheet or a video of a real-life human or animal. With the walk cycle of the lizard in my game, for instance, I first watched a video where a lizard moved around, and then I translated that movement onto my creature. Never forget about the transition between different animations. Without transitions, the animations feels robotic and less fluid. This can be tricky to combine with good player feel, but when you do it well, it improves the game by so much. Another principle that I really adore to integrate into my animations is follow-through. In that you can create a little delay of the movement of things that are attached to another object. So when the head moves down, the helmet moves down but with a few frames of delay. This lets the animation look more fluid, organic and dynamic. The follow-through principle is usually added to clothes, hats and hair. Always think about a secondary action you can add to the animation. An example for this would be the swinging arms while walking or gestures with the hands while talking. It easily lets the animation look more complex and alive because other body parts are not completely still while actively using other ones. Before you start animating your character, you should make up a little story. This is to avoid that the character's behavior and the animation don't fit. For example, an animation with a lot of energy just wouldn't fit to a really lazy character. I actually recommend writing a story even before drawing the character, not thinking about animation at that point. Color and shape language, just as the way of moving, can really tell complete stories. And that were all 10 animation tips. I hope you found a few useful ones for you. If you did so and like my content, I would highly appreciate it if you hit the like button and subscribed. See you next time. Cheers.